Hey everybody, welcome back to the second segment on the logs. First segment showed me gathering the logs, and like I said, I use a lot of evergreen logs, hardwood, spruce logs, various evergreens, pines, all natural logs. Here, take a look. You can see these flat cars. I simply took the logs that I harvested, took them to the bandsaw. These are 35-foot log cars. So I cut the logs to 35-foot lengths. And you can see the different kinds, the different textures. And they're all about 35-foot length because that's what's going on these particular log cars. Now, obviously, you don't want to use any rotten logs. You want to use a seasoned log, and you can take a look. You can see how they're shriveled up. You can see a little allergy growing on them. And that's exactly like what they would look like in Mother Nature, in my opinion. That's why they look so real. Why go out and buy cast logs or plastic logs that no matter what you do, no matter how you paint them, they look like plastic logs you painted when you can use real logs? Let's further examine this. Well, you use your handy ruler, scale ruler, HO or O scale. And the guys in the woods back in the old days had big trees. And how big are these logs? Well, you could take a look at the diameter of the log on your scale rule, and you can see that a lot of these logs are 3 feet diameter. Some are 4 feet diameter. Some are 5 or 6 feet giant logs. Some can be maybe 2 foot diameter. But again, you can basically look at the log you harvest, use your scale ruler to determine the dimension of the diameter and of the length of the log when you go to cut the log to the various size. If you have 40-foot log cars, cut the logs to 40 foot. If you have 30 or 35-foot log cars, cut the logs to fit the 30 or 35-foot log car. It's a pretty simple matter. Again, logs come in different sizes and different diameters. No two are exactly the same, but they tended to harvest the big, meaty logs in the old days when they'd go into the woods. They wouldn't waste time with tiny little logs or rotted logs. They want to harvest the good stuff. This is the log pond I've got on the layout. It's a huge log pond that feeds this huge sawmill that was modeled by Harry Clark after the sawmill at Cass, West Virginia. And I'm going to do a separate episode on this complex and on this sawmill. But right now we're concentrating on the logs. And just like I said, I like to pick different kinds. I'm not a botanist. I know the brown ones are different types of pine trees. They shrivel up a little bit as they get old. None of them are really rotted. There's all different kinds of varieties. Some are blue spruce, some are regular spruce, some are big pine tree logs. I just pick what I see out in the wild. And some of them are sassafras logs that I got out of the woods. You can see these particular logs here are sassafras logs that I actually found in the woods that are absolutely beautiful. So sometimes you can find good stuff in the woods too to cut up. Now folks, this log pond holds real water. It holds about 5 gallons of water and the logs will float. Now, I may be putting Envirotex resin in to suspend the logs and do it that way versus the water. Why? Because the water tends to leak. The water has to be drained, and I can't just leave water in the log pond all the time because it causes mildew and it's not good for the logs. So that's why it's drained. So I'll probably be using Envirotex water at a future episode and make the log pond with the Envirotex. That's a separate subject. You can see some tree stumps. You can also cut these logs up to make tree stumps. You can whittle them down to simulate stripped wood. The whittled pieces of the log are great for sawmill debris and lumberyard debris. So it's good for 1,001 different uses. Natural logs are also good construction. You can see that the base of the sawmill here is actually constructed out of logs, similar to like a log cabin would be constructed. And that's true to the prototype that was at Cass, West Virginia. I use a simple bandsaw to cut the logs. Just be careful. You can use a regular saw, you can use a handsaw, you can use a bandsaw, whatever you'd like. You want to make sure it's a nice, clean cut to simulate the way the logs are actually cut in the woods. Well, I think I've said enough about logs for tonight. I want to thank you for watching the channel. If you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. I use a lot of natural materials on this layout. Harry Clark, one of my mentors, taught me that the best scenery materials are often natural materials, and that's why I use logs. It's a no-brainer. They're not dried. I don't bake them. I don't paint them. I don't preserve them. I see them the way they are in the woods or underneath pine trees. I grab them, cut them up, and voila, I've got my logs. Thanks for watching, folks, and if you like the channel, please hit the subscribe button.